Candidate for the regular season MVP before tearing his ACL in December. Yesterday, Doug Peterson said a healthy Wentz would have led the Eagles to a title just like Foles did. Take a listen.
Listen, Carson Wentz was the MVP talk, of the league last year. And I truly believe if he's healthy, and I still feel strongly that we're probably in the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl with Carson Wentz, and he's the MVP. I mean, I just think that's just the way he played last year. And he's a big reason. He's not the only reason, but he's a big reason why we were, I believe, 11-2 at the time, playing the Rams and won the NFC East. And it's for me, being a former quarterback, to have two guys really three guys. I mean, throw Nate in there, but you're talking about Nick and Carson, who you just don't bat an eye with either one of these guys. The way they prepare, the way they study, their demeanor on the field, their leadership styles. I mean, it's just it's a blessing to have two veteran guys like that, and now have an MVP, a Super Bowl MVP as your backup.
We're joined by Fox NFL analyst Mark Schlereth. Welcome, Stink.
Thank you.
Do you agree with Peterson?
I do agree with Peterson. Carson Wentz was phenomenal all season long. I got to call one of his games. From not only just from his skill set, but his
good impersonator doing.
Oh my goodness!
Oh my goodness! You heard it. He called his game, Skip.
Yeah, and not only that, but the leadership. Like we always talk about leadership, and it's a really hard thing to put your finger on. But when guys love a dude, right? Like we played with John Elway, the Duke. You love the Duke, right?
Yep.
He's a guy that, one, is completely committed to the team, will sacrifice for the team. He'll never put himself ahead of the team. And his guys rally around him. They love him. And it was so evident when you're out there on the field during warmups, talking to Carson, talking to Nick Foles, talking to Doug Peterson, to Frank Reich, the way they felt about Carson, the way this team felt, talking to the offensive linemen, the way they loved Carson. There's no question. The unquestioned leader of the Philadelphia Eagles is Carson Wentz. And, when he got hurt in that Rams game, I believe 33 touchdowns versus, 7 picks?
7, that's it.
I think he would have been the MVP. I think he would have been the MVP of the league. And I'm 100% with Doug Peterson. The only thing, and I thought their roster was better than New England's. I was like, I'm just not going to bet against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick. But I don't think that would have changed the way that Doug Peterson called the game. I don't think all of a sudden, I don't think it was just because, Nick Foles is playing quarterback, so let me throw caution to the wind and I got nothing to lose because I'm playing with a backup quarterback. He made those decisions on fourth down all year long.
He did.
That's his calling card. And so, I've always said one of the hardest things about beating the Patriots is they're so sound, but it's getting over the mystique of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady and being who you are. And Doug Peterson was true to who he was as a coach and the way he called games throughout the entirety of the season. If you go watch every game, man, that's who he was. Err on the side of aggressiveness, even if it ends up costing me a game, that's what I'm going to do.
Go ahead, Skip. I don't want to add nothing right now.
So what did it tell either of you two former Denver Broncos that the backup quarterback came in and played at an even higher level than the quote-unquote MVP Carson Wentz? What does that tell you? He took it up a whole nother level, and I know what my eyes told me. Number one, that your MVP argument for Carson Wentz got completely discounted and discredited because the quote-unquote backup quarterback that you have little to no respect for came in and played the 2 back-to-back greatest quarterback playoff games I've ever seen. Championship game, Super Bowl. It's just hard to argue with the numbers he put up because they're staggering. And he not only torched the number 1 ranked defense in Minnesota in the championship game, he outplayed the greatest quarterback ever on a stage that quarterback has owned, Tom Brady, in a shootout. A 41-33 shootout, and you put up 41 on Bill Belichick's defense, and you're telling me that Carson Wentz could have done that? Again, we'll never know, but my eyes would tell me that Nick Foles is playing with a more veteran poise and veteran accuracy than I have seen Carson Wentz display so far. In his sophomore year, once the games started to really count, once the playoffs came, I don't think he could have played at the level Nick Foles played.
I had the utmost confidence in him.
Well, yeah, you did.
And Doug Peterson has been aggressive all year, and he said he thinks what served him well in the Super Bowl was his aggressive play calling. But he's been aggressive all year. And what normally happens, the reason why Tom Brady wasn't able to win, he didn't do anything dumb. Pete Carroll. Yeah, like run
so
the ball.
now we're going back to 2014? That's all you got?
I'm just saying the mystique is that when you do dumb things, like throw the ball on the 1 yard line. Can you imagine us in the Super Bowl? We got TD.
No.
If that first Super Bowl against the Packers, we were going to run the ball 4 times probably.
Well, what if during the regular season, TD had tried 5 times from the 1 yard line and been stopped 4 times? Then what would the coach do?
We would have fought a couple of our offensive linemen and switched them out.
Exactly.
Well, that's what had happened to Marshawn Lynch during that regular season.
But it didn't happen against that team. So I don't worry about the regular season. Super Bowl is a different animal. Guys get down and get because the money's on the line. I'm tired of you trying to minimize Carson Wentz because what he's trying to do, you don't know. I know this sneaker rascal right here. What he's trying to do, he's trying to minimize Carson, but he's going to talk about his guy that's up in Dallas.
I haven't said a word about my guy in Dallas. Did I say a word?
No, you didn't say, but I know what you're trying to do.
No, you're thinking that I'm thinking that, but I'm not thinking
the most interesting thing to me about these two quarterbacks is really, you think about it, and one of the epic rants ever was Jason Kelsey at the parade, talking about how they were disrespected. But the most amazing thing about that rant, he went through that whole organization. But Doug Peterson, you think about this. The last 2 games of the season, when Nick Foles took over, people were like, well, they're not going to win anything. Because Nick Foles did not play very well. The first quarter of the first playoff game against Atlanta, he was awful. And, you start to look at coaching and the way you can put players in a position to, one, have some success so that success breeds confidence, and that confidence carries you to a championship. And that's what Doug Peterson did. And I believe he'd do the same thing for Carson Wentz. I believe he did it during the season.
Nick Foles, remember, he had no training camp because he was hurt when he first came back to Philly. So he hadn't played a lick of football all the way up to getting thrown into the fire against the Rams here in Los Angeles. Late in the game on a 3rd and 8, did he not convert it to save the game?
Yeah, he did.
And then he did not play very well the next 2 games because he hadn't played football all year, and they were trying to call Carson Wentz's plays for Nick Foles, and they're a little different, if not a lot different. But within the confines of the same system with Doug Peterson's play calling, and I think maybe he should be MVP because this was his breakout year as a play caller for both guys. Because they became interchangeable parts within the same system. Am I right? Because once they had the week off and they could throw out the Carson Wentz plays and bring in some new Nick Foles plays, mainly off that read option, that option pass to the weak side. Yeah, it's the 27 touchdowns to 2 interceptions year that Nick Foles had under Chip Kelly. They brought those plays back, and then what? Yeah, they were a little shaky in the first quarter, but they weren't so shaky in quarter 2, 3, and 4, and they knocked off favored Atlanta. Then they torched Minnesota. Then he outduels Tom Brady. He was just getting better and better, but it's some of the first football he played all year. So you got to give him a little pass because those 2 games under fire, under pressure, do you really think Carson Wentz could have had that kind of poise against those defenses? I don't.
Coach Belichick was going to try to ruin your GOAT argument because he was going to try and win a Super Bowl with Jimmy G.
Okay, well, that's what he wanted. That's fine. And he tried to win. He tried to repolish his genius label by not playing Malcolm Butler, right? Well, didn't he say, watch what I do with the cornerback that I stole from the Philadelphia Eagles?
Tom Brady lost that game.
Yeah. Tom Brady, so he threw for the most yards in the history of the playoffs in that game, and he lost the game. The most yards he put up, the most points any losing team has ever put up in the Super Bowl, 33 points.
You heard what he said?
No.
The losing team?
No, losing.
Oh, so it was all his fault, right? So he played one of the great quarterback games in the history of the Super Bowl, but he was at fault.
I know you. So I had studied this, and I had a feeling that this might come up, so I went back and pressed my notes. Like Skip, I throw my notes away, but I have this right down. Do you know on the
looks like you have a whole notebook of notes.
Do you know the first 4 drives, the New England Patriots? What did they do, Skip? Did they get the ball in the end zone? Who's the quarterback in New England the first 4 drives of the Super Bowl this year?
Timeout. Had New England ever scored in the first quarter of any Super Bowl Tom Brady's ever played? Ever? Ever?
I said the first.
Well, ask me that about every Super Bowl, because the answer is 0-0-0.
Is that Coach Belichick's fault?
No, but who won 5 Super Bowls for Coach Belichick? That guy
Coach
did.
Belichick won Super Bowl for Tom Brady.
No, he was the guy who, in all 5 Super Bowls, he pulled off game-winning fourth quarter drives.
No.
Yes.
It was the foot of Vinatieri the first 2.
Oh, so he didn't have to set up that? Oh,
You see, but now you don't want to give Aaron Rodgers for hitting crossbar. Remember, it was Aaron Rodgers.
Don't bring Aaron Rodgers into this conversation. That is disrespectful to Tom Brady.
I will say this is a great point. They drove the ball early in that game and came away with field goals. And the one thing you always talk about, right, and a missed field goal. And one thing you always talk about is anytime you kick field goals, especially in championship type of games, you're 3 points are closer to losing. And that is, I think it might be a Troy Aikmanism, but that is 100% true.
Skip. Why? Get over it, Skip.
No, you're going to have to get over the fact you have a big problem named Nick Foles next year. And I pity Carson Wentz next year because he has a Nick Foles problem.
You're going to be sad. You're going to be sad again.
It's very hard to keep track.
I know.
Alabama, the Eagles, and